the last 10 years, I thought my skinny fat body type was entirely my fault. But then I discovered something completely shocking in scientific literature that has changed how I feel about my body and how I see my body today. I'm 31 years old now, and for the latter part of my life, I've struggled with confidence when it came to my appearance. And when I say appearance, I specifically mean my physique. Up until now, I thought this was all because of some laziness within me or a lack of grit to keep going when the going gets tough. For me, this all started in my 20s. I guess I just woke up one day looking down at my body and feeling like I was just stuck in this skinny fat body type where I had skinny arms, I had skinny legs, but for some reason I would always have fat concentrated around my chest, i.e. giving me man boobs, and my belly. Whenever I reached this point throughout my 20s where I just looked at myself and I was disappointed, I'd always come to the crossroads of making a decision. I suddenly became very motivated to make a change, and I knew that there was one of two ways to go forward. I could either go on a caloric deficit and go on a cut, strength train a couple of days a week and be on a calorie deficit, or I could go on a lean bulk and be on a caloric surplus and still strength train. I would always push myself to take the first option, which was to go on a cut. And the reason why I do that is because I'd be so worried that if I go on a bulk, I'm going to put on some muscle, but at the same time, my man boobs and my belly might just get more and more jigglier, and that would just kill my confidence. So I thought instead, okay, I know I don't have much muscle, but why don't I try to shred down on a bit of fat? And yes, I might lose some muscle on the way, but it might make me feel better. Now, I do this diligently for maybe about 3 to 4 months, and I would confidently and quite easily be able to lose about 5-6 kilos while being able to maintain my strength. But by the end of that 3 to 4 months, despite losing 5 or 6 kilos, look, I might have lost a little bit, just a little bit of fat around my chest and belly, but for the most part, I would still see this thick, jiggly belly that protrudes out, and my man boobs just never really disappear. So I would kind of feel like crap still and think, well, now what? Should I just give up? Because continuing to go on a cut to lose this stuff, it's really eating me inside because I'm starving. I've been on a deficit for so long, and I'm so scared that my arms and legs are going to get even slimmer, and it doesn't make me feel the most confident in the clothes that I'm wearing because obviously, guys tend to look better when they fill up their clothes a bit. So that's something that I've always been a little bit stuck with. And over these last 10 years, I've had so many moments where I've just asked myself the question, have I just been dealt a bad hand with my genetics? Why is it that whenever I stop training or if I don't eat as healthily, that everything just goes to here and here? Because I look around me and, I see plenty of guys that they go through periods of just not training as hard, and they also eat like shit. But for some reason, whenever they gain weight, it goes to their arms and legs. So the places where it looks good to fill up, they get their mass filled up there, their fat mass there, and they barely get anything here. So their bodies tend to look more proportionate. Whereas my body, when I become negligent, it really punishes me, and it disproportionately allocates or distributes that fat gain. Nothing goes to my arms and legs, everything goes to my abdominal region. So I wondered, why is this happening? And secondly, am I being too hard on myself? Is there more to the story that I just don't know? Are there reasons why my body naturally approaches this baseline that are out of my control? And the crazy thing is, through doing a little bit of research, I found out that the answer to those questions is Yes, this finding has been absolutely eye-opening, and I wish I knew this 10 years ago. Before I go forward, it's important for me to say this. I'm not the kind of person that likes to play the victim of his own life. So the reason I present to you this information, I want to be clear. I'm not presenting to make you feel sorry for me, because I don't feel sorry for myself. The reason I present this information is empowerment. I think that having access to this information will not only empower you and I, especially if you're from a South Asian descent or background, to leverage what you are in control of. I think something more importantly than that, more importantly than empowerment, is forgiveness and being more easy on yourself. Because with this piece of information, I have felt a huge amount of relief, and I feel so much less guilty about why my body has naturally approached this baseline over the last 10 years. Because there's a large part of it that is simply just not in my control, and I've got the data to support that fact. Through reading some scientific papers, which I will provide the link to in the description to this YouTube video so you can check them out for yourself, I have been able to verify these 3 claims with a reasonable amount of confidence. Claim number 1, South Asians tend to have higher body fat percentages compared to Europeans for the same BMI. Number 2, South Asians tend to accumulate more body fat in the abdominal area or viscerally compared to other ethnicities. And number 3, South Asians tend to have lower lean muscle mass relative to body size. These 3 points provide a clear connection to why many South Asians, not all, but many South Asians tend to have a natural baseline skinny fat body type. Look, when you combine lower lean muscle mass with higher body fat and also a focus of that body fat in the abdominal or visceral area, you get skinny fat. You get someone that has thinner arms, thinner legs, and for guys, you tend to get a bit of man boobs and you tend to grow a bit of a gut. Even when you're training, even when you're trying to do everything right, the fat around these areas just tends to be a lot more stubborn and more difficult to get rid of. Before knowing about these studies, these 3 claims already were true in my head. And the reason why I say that is because, well, I'm a human being who has existed for the last 31 years. I've got many friends from a South Asian background. I've got friends from other backgrounds. I've gone through uni. I've worked professionally for about 8-ish years. I've looked around and observed. And what I have observed on average is that people from South Asian backgrounds, and I'm only talking about males here, tend to fall within that skinny fat body type more likely than people from other ethnicities. It's just something that I've noticed, but I've never known why. I've always just been like, oh, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess it just is what it is. But now it's like, oh, it is what it is, but I get why it's happening. Like I said before, there's 2 sides to this. There's 2 sides to why this information, I believe, is very important. One side is empowerment, to use this information to make the most of what you can to better your life. And the second side is to just go easy on yourself. If you have struggled with this skinny fat body type and you are South Asian, just know that There are things that are outside of your control that are contributing to this, and despite you putting in your best efforts, there are things that are making it a bit more challenging. Now, a reasonable question to then ask is, well, we know these three things are most possibly true based on the research. I guess it's not definitive, but the research shows that it's likely to be true that South Asians tend to have lower lean muscle mass. South Asians tend to have higher body fat compared to Europeans at the same BMI, and South Asians tend to accumulate body fat specifically in the abdominal region. Now, the next reasonable question is, well, why? Why do South Asians tend to have these tendencies? I've done some digging, obviously using a bit of AI to help me do that digging. And I found that there is actually quite limited research that definitively explains why these things are so. But from the limited information that I have found, it seems that there are two camps. There are a few potential factors that are completely out of our control for why these three characteristics that affect our baseline physiology tend to happen. And then there is a camp of factors that are within our control. So the more positive things, because we actually have influence here. And I want to start with the factors that I've identified are completely out of our control. Out of our control factor number 1, early life developmental programming. Early life developmental programming is about how the way we develop in the womb, what we're subject to in the womb of our mothers, actually has an impact on how we present ourselves in the current state we're in when we're born. So the hormonal experiences that our mother has during pregnancy, the nutrition she's subject to, the food she can eat, and so many other things about the environment that she is subject to, they have an impact. And the important thing is here, they have a potential influence on the way in which our body tends to allocate fat and muscle. There is a study that I will link that shows that babies of South Asian descent compared to babies of other descents tend to have lower muscle mass at birth. So this isn't even at adulthood, but at birth, and also higher quantities or higher percentage of fat mass at birth as well compared to other babies of other ethnicities. So super interesting. The next potential reason that is completely out of our control is genetic inheritance. Now, I am not going to pretend to be someone who knows anything about DNA or the science of this stuff. I'm just telling you about what I've read. But this concept of genetic inheritance, in a nutshell, is just the fact that both of your parents that contributed to producing you, they passed on certain DNA to you. And that DNA plays a factor in determining that how you as a human being go from baby to adult to growing up, how your fat tends to accumulate in different parts of your body, how easy it is for you to build muscle, what your body fat composition tends to look like. Your genes actually play a role in that, and these are things that you also get from your parents. So an important thing that is out of your control. Now, a third potential reason that is completely out of your control as well, if you're South Asian, that may be contributing to this skinny fat body type. It's an interesting one. It's man-made famines, or famines driven by colonialism. You see, during the 1800s and 1900s, well, mostly 1800s, South Asia, particularly India, was subject to many, many famines. And for or during these famines, people were subject to prolonged periods of starvation. millions and millions of people unfortunately died during many of these famines. Now, a potential hypothesis that I've heard is that, well, because of these famines, the people who went through those famines, their bodies had to adapt to this state where, in order to survive, they needed to have less muscle mass, because the more muscle that you have, the more calories your body's going to want to burn, and also their bodies would lean towards storing more fat, because the more fat that you have, the more energy you can tap into to survive longer periods. So this hypothesis is basically that this tendency in order to survive famines has transferred or continued across generations, even to today. Us living in 2026, South Asians that have migrated to countries like the UK, Australia, America, because our grandparents lived in South Asia at the time, or great-grandparents have gone through these famines, there is a possibility that we have had that, I guess, survival physiology passed down onto us, where now our bodies still think that they're going through famines, and hence they are naturally inclinating towards having lower muscle mass at the arms and the legs, and higher amount of fat accumulation in the abdomen to prepare for a rainy day, or no, a rainy season of no food. Now, I've looked for validity when it comes to this specific theory, and I haven't really found any. I think it's a really, really interesting theory, and I think there could be a possibility there, but there's no research that I actually found that really proves that this is the definitive reason. So it's not something I can say with a high level of confidence could be the cause. Now, the better part of this video, the factors that are within our control. This is what I would much rather focus on, because I believe it's better to focus on what you can actually change rather than dwell on what you can't. And it turns out it's actually quite simple. You see, the problem is that we tend to have lower muscle mass in the place where it matters most, in the places where it looks best, which is our arms and legs, and we tend to have higher fat mass in the places where it looks worse. So the key really is to build more muscle mass. So strength train really hard, and find enjoyment in getting stronger. Lift weights, do resistance training, do whatever it is you enjoy most that can contribute to helping you get stronger. And then secondly, nutrition. That's something that everyone is in control of. Have enough protein to support your muscle development. Eat enough calories to ensure you are supporting your muscle development, but not too many calories. So obviously, don't eat junk, don't eat like crap, because when you eat like crap, it's very easy to overeat. So look, that's really it. I've presented you some information explaining the why, and why you should not feel so guilty about constantly getting stuck in this body type, even though for the most part, you know, on average, you're treating your body pretty well. But at the same time, focus on what you are in control of, which is the ability to get stronger, build muscle, and over time, adjust that body fat composition, or your body mass composition, so that you can feel better and more confident with your body, despite having genes that kind of go against you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned something new.